Good afternoon. Last week, we started to take up the subject of principle, the word principle. The word principle becomes more and more important as you study it. There's nothing in life that is accomplished without a principle. Everyone has a principle of some kind, and most people have 100 principles governing their lives. And so it is with spiritual living. Spiritual living is based on principles. Perhaps there is one overall principle, and that is why it is used as a synonym for God in all of the metaphysical teachings. Probably because principle and law are so closely allied that they are both used as synonyms for God. God is a lawgiver, but God is also the law. Why? You cannot separate God from its creation. So God must be the lawgiver and the law that it gives, in the same way that God is the Father and God is the Son. You cannot separate the creation from the Creator. They are one. And the whole of human discord is present with us because of the universally accepted belief that there is God and man. Naturally, if the word "and" is there, that makes it two, and that makes separation, division. And of course, man can wander along by himself without God government. And of course, this is the truth in the human picture. Mortal man is not God-governed. Human beings are not God-governed. If they were, there wouldn't be a discord on earth. If human beings were God-governed, there'd never be an accident. There'd never be a sin. There'd never be disease. There never would be lack or limitation. There couldn't possibly be a war. No, none of these things could be if human beings were God-governed. But we're told over and over again that the natural man receiveth not the things of God. It's impossible for that which we call the natural man, the human being. That's why most of the prayers, 99% of all prayers that are uttered, are just a waste of time, effort, and emotion, because they are the prayers of human beings, the carnal man, the natural man, trying to reach up to God and get a spiritual blessing for a material or human purpose. Now then, that doesn't leave the world hopeless. Oh no. That only leaves the world hopeless that intends to live separate and apart from the will of God or the law of God or the life of God. As long as there is man whose breath is in his nostrils, there will be disease, death, discord. Cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? The natural man receiveth not the things of God. If the Spirit of God dwell in you, then gives he power unto you to become the sons of God. You see that? The power to become the sons of God. In your innate, original spiritual being, you are sons of God. But as humans, prodigals, wandering away from the Father's house, You now must come into awareness of the Spirit of God in order again to become the children of God, to return to the Father's house and receive the jewel ring and the kingly robe, the princely robe. God is Spirit. Therefore, the Son of God is Spirit. Now that declaration is a principle or law. Think now, once you have declared God is a Spirit, the offspring of God must be Spirit, then the life of the Son of God must be Spirit. Then the prayer of the Son of God must be spiritual. Now you understand the Master when he says, "No more shall you worship in this holy mountain, nor yet in Jerusalem." That is the great Hebrew temple there, the Mother Church. "No, you shall worship in spirit and in truth." Not in a place, not in a time, not for a thing, but in spirit and in truth. Now, as a child of God, Spirit, of what value would a prayer be that had as its object the attaining of something personal or finite or selfish, or something that wasn't intended for one's neighbor? No, we are back to a principle. God is a spirit. The offspring of God is spirit. Creation is spiritual. Therefore, the only righteous prayer would be the prayer uttered with the idea of a spiritual return. Now, is there such a thing as a spiritual good that could come to me or you, separate and apart from everybody in the world? And you know the answer to that. It would be like praying that my 2 times 2 are 4, or that my garden have sunshine. There is no such thing. The only spiritual prayer is the prayer of recognition of the universality of God's good. The moment you can see that life is of God means that the life of every individual is of God, that's a spiritual prayer. The moment that you can see that God's rain, R-A-I-N, God's rain falls on the just and the unjust, that is a spiritual prayer. The moment you believe that God withholds anything from me or you for any reason whatsoever, it is outside the realm of spiritual prayer. Now, there is the importance of the word principle, the importance of the word law. God's grace must be understood as a universal good, never absent from the world. Just as the Master was willing to feed the multitudes through the grace of God without asking whether they were saints or sinners, or whether perhaps they were rich or poor. Perhaps many of those people could have afforded to buy their own meals. Probably they could even have afforded to buy the meals for the multitude. But he didn't ask it of them. Rich or poor, saint or sinner, sick or well, it was a universal principle. I'm feeding the multitudes. All who want to partake, partake. In the same way, he was willing that the thief on the cross be taken into paradise this night, that the prodigals, all prodigals, wherever he found them, be forgiven. The boy born blind, the woman taken in adultery, the woman at the well of Samaria, who not only had 5 husbands, but was now living with another one to whom she wasn't married. He denied nothing to any of those. Why? Because it was not within his power to give or withhold. Whatever of good there was the grace of God available to all who would open themselves to it. Now, this was by no means a license for people to go out and be bad. This was stating that God finds you where you are, whatever state you are in. And from that point, the moment the grace of God touches you, you open yourself to the new dimension, the new dispensation, and then evil becomes as impossible to you as to the saints. But there is no provision in Scripture, not in the New Testament, for a person first becoming good before they can get the benefit of God, or first becoming rich, or first becoming employed, or first becoming anything. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground. There's another principle. The place, you see, unless you can recognize that you cannot go to heaven, that you cannot go to harmony, that you cannot tomorrow have harmony, that the place whereon thou standest is holy ground, you have no principle from which to work. Now, of course, there again is your principle of is. You see, in the last analysis, when you get all through with your studies, when you get all through with your praying and your meditation, you're going to learn, all of us are, that there is only one word of spiritual truth ever been voiced in the history of the world, and that one word is. And then you'll never reach out for God, because reaching out for God is as if you wanted God to do something, but God can't do something. God's work is finished, complete, perfect, and always has been. Now, if you start from the place whereon thou standest as holy ground, even if I make my bed in hell this minute, this is holy ground. God is, all that the Father hath is mine. Son, I am ever with thee. If you start with that as your principle will consist of one word, is. In ancient times, they voiced the same thing, but they voiced it in a slightly different way. The reason it isn't effective today is that their way has been bandied about through misunderstanding. In the ancient days of Moses, there was a Hebrew word, em, which was a name for God. And just as we are always searching for God, they were searching for em. And em means I am. And then one day Moses realized, in the depths of his own being, why, I am that I am. I am that. Oh, that was a great day in his world. Not I will be that, not I should be that, not I would like to be that, not I hope to be that. Why, I am that. And then he could relax all effort and let that amness flow. But you see, people have taken that I am that I am as a quotation, put it out here, and it's become meaningless. It's even gone down further than that. It's been used as a way of making a human being become God. And so there are people going around saying, I am God, I am God, I am God. Well, you know, that's another impossibility. No human being can be God. Yes, if you ever hear the voice whispered to you as Moses did, no, you're not. I am God. That will be the truth. But if you ever voice it, it'll be ridiculous. Now, Because I am is so involved today with theological meanings and metaphysical meanings and all kinds of meanings other than its own original one, when we say I am, it doesn't carry the power and the weight that it should. If you could understand it in this light, it would again be a power with you. If, for instance, you are seeking health, employment, security, safety, peace, joy, and you would just say to yourself, wait a minute, I don't have to seek it, I already am. Then it would again have power. In other words, I'm not seeking a future tense or a future condition. I already am. I'm acknowledging that I already am in my Father's household. I already am in the secret place of the Most High. Certainly, if I open my eyes and I'm out in the world, I have tribulation. The moment I close my eyes to the appearance, I can say in here, I am in the secret place of the Most High. I am about my Father's business. I am under God's government. I am God-governed. I am God-fed, God-supplied, God-protected, God-sustained. I am always. I am in my Father's household. I am in the way of the Father. I am in his heart. I am in his soul. I am in the secret place underneath of the everlasting arms. I rest in him. God never leaves me nor forsakes me. I am in God's presence. Yes, if we can take unto ourselves that meaning of I am, and not in some bold, brazen way as if we were trying to spiritualize a human being, but just in the recognition that here, in the depths of my withinness, all that God is, I am. All that the Father hath is mine. I am in the secret place now. Right now, I am where the Father's love enfolds me. The Father's mind sustains me. The Father's law is my law. The Father's life is mine. Yes. In that sense, then, I am becomes a power. But we can go from there, and we can take the word is. And here again, you see, we're staying today on the subject of principle. And you will find that every one of the writings of the message of the infinite way is built around one or more principles of life. The overall principle, of course, is the presence and power of God, oneness. The overall principle of the message of the infinite way is oneness. I and the Father are one. God manifest as individual being. That you have as you, or God as the only law, the only substance, the only mind, the only cause, the only effect. There you have the overall principle of the infinite way. But we'll break that up as we'll break up the sun into a lot of sunbeams just for a moment, or a diamond into a lot of facets. And we will have blue light and yellow light and green light and purple and red coming up through the different facets of the diamond, but actually it's just one diamond and it's only one color. Now then, every one of the writings is built on one or more of the principles of life. To begin with, each one of the writings has on the front page, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. And you can see the very fact that that is in every book, on the front page of every book, means that it has a special purpose in our mission. And that purpose is that we understand truly the word humility, the meaning of the Master's message. I can of my own self do nothing. Except the Lord build the house, They labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the watch. The watchman waketh, but in vain. Now, once you catch that principle of Psalm 127, you have a principle of life with which to live. In other words, waking every morning and realizing, except the Lord make this day will not be prosperous, successful, harmonious, healthful. Unless the Lord set my table will not be spiritually set. Unless the Lord go before me, my way will not be straight. There's a principle. Do you see that? And unless you consciously imbibe that principle, let it fill your thought, the 127th Psalm doesn't live for you. Somewhere there is a poem about the fact that Christ may be born every day of the week, but if it isn't born in you, it's of no value. And that's an absolute truth. Christ fills the earth. But if Christ doesn't fill your heart or your soul or your mind or your spirit, then Christ is non-existent so far as you or I are concerned. And so there is wonderful scripture all over the world. And God is a lawgiver and God is a law, but it's of no value to us except in proportion as we adopt it. The Master gave us that so clearly in the 15th chapter of John. Except ye abide in me, except you let my word abide in you, nothing happens to you that's any good or that is permanent. Now, we have a principle then. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. Unless we bring God into our conscious experience, whether we're healing, whether we're writing or painting, or whether we're doing housework, or whether we're out selling, except the Lord be with us in it, not as a quotation, but as an experience, will not be. After a while you'll find it is not necessary to remember the passage. After a while you'll find that it isn't necessary to consciously think truth. It always is coming to you spontaneously from within. But in the first year or two or three, you have to do the pump priming. Then after that, it takes over and it flows spontaneously. Now, also on the first page of every one of the Infinite Way writings, there is a passage from the book The Infinite Way. Now, while The Infinite Way was only published in 1947, this particular passage was written in 1936. Sitting at my desk in Boston one day, all of a sudden something wanted to be written down. I took a pad and pencil and wrote this as it came through. And of course it had no meaning for me, and so I just threw it aside and thought, well, I hope someday I'll know what it means. And 11 years later, when The Infinite Way was being written, this piece of paper with this on it was on top of my desk out in Santa Monica, California. Now, how it got there, how it traveled those 11 years, why, I have no idea, or how it got on top of the desk. But there it was, and I found a place where it fit, and it went in there. Now, of course, like this 127th Psalm, it is one of the major principles of the Infinite Way. Illumination dissolves all material ties and binds men together with the golden chains of spiritual understanding. Well, that, of course, we'll take it bit by bit. That is clear, isn't it? That so far as material ties are concerned, it doesn't make any difference whether we here are related by blood or by friendship or by race or religion or anything else. Whatever our backgrounds of human relationship may have been, in our coming together in the Infinite Way, all of those ties are dissolved. They have no significance anymore. It makes no difference now whether I'm your blood brother or blood sister or whatnot. That is of no importance. What counts is that we are bound together with golden chains of spiritual understanding. And what are those chains of spiritual understanding? Love thy neighbor as thyself. If we are children of God, we're heirs of God, we are joint heirs. That's our spiritual relationship. And in that relationship, we have one obligation, that is to love one another. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Now that is our tie. Ah, yes. But that is our tie here. And again, it can't be a quotation. It must be lived. On my part, it has to be lived so that every demand that is made upon me, I must fulfill without complaint, without question, without asking, without concern. Just obey and fulfill every demand that is made upon me by you. On your part, you must fulfill whatever it is that comes to you of love toward me. That is decided in your own mind, just as I determine in my mind what constitutes my love and my service to you. So does God enable you to know what your relationship to each other and to me must be in order to conform to a spiritual tie of love. Not a human obligation. There are none. We have no human obligations. I have said this in lectures and church work before, that it's not right to say, oh, this is your church and you must support it. This is your movement and you must support it. Nothing doing. Nothing is yours, nothing, except to love one another. And we have no human ties upon each other and no human rights. We only have the right to love, and that must be free will. Now, that's that. It acknowledges, that is illumination, acknowledges only the leadership of the Christ. Now you see, we do not have a book or a man or a woman or a figure in history to acknowledge as leader. We acknowledge only the leadership, our leadership within us of the Christ. Again, illumination has no ritual or rule, but the divine, impersonal, universal love. No other worship than the inner flame that is ever lit at the shrine of spirit. This union, at the moment, I'm speaking of the union that binds us in the infinite way, but which ultimately must be understood to be the union that will bind all mankind in their recognition of the Christ. This union is a free state of spiritual brotherhood. The only restraint is the discipline of soul. We have no rules or regulations, no rules of conduct, only that which is dictated by the soul from within us. Therefore, we know liberty without license. We are a united universe without physical limits, and that does away with state borders, national borders, international borders, and makes for that one world that Wilkie wrote about. We are a united universe without physical limits, and in our individual experience, that's what we are now. Right here and right now, we have attained enough of this Christhood, of the spiritual brotherhood, that we have no racial, religious bigotries or biases. We have no national hates or fears. We understand that the life of every individual is God, the mind and the soul and the spirit is God. And in the attainment of that, we are setting others free into that same spiritual realization. We are a united universe without physical limits, a divine service to God without ceremony or creed. And I was glad to notice in Mr. Eisler's or Dr. Eisler's article yesterday on the church page of the afternoon paper that in speaking of the Easter service to his readers, he also said that men are bound, entombed by the belief that their life is in ceremonies and creeds and rituals, and they are mistaken. The life isn't found in those ceremonies or rites or rituals, but only as they live in Christ. See how universal that is, that our ministers are free to tell that very thing today, that we don't find our freedom in rituals, in rites, and ceremonies. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have them. Oh, every one of them is a beautiful symbol when it is understood in its right light. It is like the day we're having today. Easter, you'd think that the principle of Easter was Easter eggs. There is a principle to this day, and a very, very important principle, and so important that if we only understood it, we could all be instantaneously made free as it was intended that we should. Just let us digress for a moment, although it's still on principle. Why was the Master crucified? Was it for any guilty act that he had committed? Was it for any wrong? Was it a punishment? No. No, it couldn't have been that. Was it some lesson he needed? No, it couldn't have been that. No, he needed no lesson. There was only one reason for the crucifixion. He had already said that if you destroy this temple in 3 days, I will raise it up. And that's a very brash remark to make unless you're ready to prove it. Why should anyone believe it? That is something that has to be demonstrated. If you destroy this temple in 3 days, I will raise it up. And if the world at large, beginning with his followers, if the world at large was ever to accept a principle that the body is indestructible, that life is indestructible, even the life in this body is indestructible, somebody, sometime, will have to demonstrate it and prove it. And so, the Master is crucified, and he does rise from the tomb in this same body with the self-same marks on the body from the nails and the sword, showing that it isn't some kind of an astral body, it isn't some kind of a spiritual body, it is the very body that was crucified. And he walks the earth in it and eats food with it. So the digestive organs must have been operating. Now, you see, we have a principle now, a definite principle. We know now not only that life is eternal and immortal, nobody doubts that, but we know that the life in this body is eternal and immortal and indestructible, and we have seen it proven. We have seen the law. It's one thing, to say that the earth is round and that there's a continent across the sea. It's another thing for Christopher Columbus to get in a ship and go over and prove that there's another continent over that horizon. But after Columbus did it, it was proven for us. It was a law, a principle even before that. Now it is a demonstrated and demonstrable one. And so with this thing of the body. Life is eternal. Life in this body is eternal. If you ever die, you will rise again in this self-same body. And if you are far enough along on the spiritual path, long before you ever come to dying, you will see others rise, as I have, reading at funeral ceremonies, at funeral services, and seeing the corpse standing right beside the coffin there and laughing, smiling, waving sometimes. Oh yes, don't ever doubt that when you leave this earth, you leave it with this body. You say, what is it we see in the casket? It isn't a body. There's no body there. That is our concept of body externalized. That is what we expect to see, and we see it. It isn't there. It isn't there. He is risen, but he is risen with his body. Now, that body changes, just as the Master's changed between the resurrection and the ascension. There are no signs that at the time of the ascension that there were any knife wounds left or nail wounds left or sword wounds. No, no, no. There was none of that at the time of the ascension. In those days that elapsed, the Master underwent a change of consciousness and externalized a change of form of body. Just in the same way that you watch the immigrant ships come in and see the people as they are dressed, clothed, and at that state of consciousness, and then see that same family a year or two later, you will see what a change has taken place in their appearance, in their clothing, in their hairdress and whatnot. Because as their consciousness changes, the outer form changes. Everything in our outer life changes in proportion as our consciousness. And therefore, the higher concept that we have of body, the finer appearance of body, we will show forth. Once we begin to understand God as the substance of body, our own bodies become healthier, stronger, more youthful, more vital, more alive. But that must take place within our consciousness before it can take place with our body. And there you have another principle. There is another principle. As consciousness of truth deepens, the external appearance changes. In other words, supposing you were to study music for a year, let's say you were to go to the university and take a musical appreciation course. At the end of a year, your concept of music would be entirely different than it is now. And so, your appreciation, your externalization, your degree of playing or singing or hearing, all would be different within a year. As your consciousness of music changes, your externalization of music changes. So it is in every walk of life. That is, again, a principle. Whatever change you wish to see made manifest in the external must first be made in the internal. It must be made in your consciousness. Now, it is for this reason that it has been said that we are masters of our fate, captains of our soul. We are, in proportion as we assume the responsibility. In other words, if we go through life for the next 12 months just living our everyday human experience as many of us did in the past, we will find ourselves a year from now in the same position we are today or were a year ago. Whereas, if we accept the fact that there is a principle of life and begin to live it today, you will see that a year from now you will not be the same person. Your external work will have changed, life will have changed. Now, even to take one principle, let us say this one principle of the 23rd Psalm will make a change, a drastic change. The secret of the 23rd Psalm is the principle is in the word is. And so, you take that and find, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not want why? The Lord is my shepherd. All right, there is one sentence containing the vital principle. The Lord is my... Now I relax. I can relax because I shall not want. I shall not want why? Because the Lord is my shepherd. If I can accept the principle that the Lord is my shepherd, I have no further fears, worries, doubts. I relax. And I let that take over. Well, the Lord is my shepherd. What more do I want? What more is there to be gotten out of life? The Lord is my... Oh, well, then let's see what my shepherd Well, what does my shepherd do? There you have it. I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd. And we then come to, He leadeth me beside the still waters. Not He will, not if I pray, not if I am good, not if I... No. He leadeth me. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He is doing this. This is His responsibility, not mine. There's no if, there's no and, there's no but. There's no provision for doing anything to become under that law. It is already in effect. The Lord is my shepherd. That's why I shall not want. He leadeth me. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul. He restoreth my peace. Remember, it's taking all of the responsibility out of our hands. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art. He is with me. Now, ultimately, as I said before, you will see that that is the greatest principle of life that has ever been revealed. The Word is, just like you could say, the sun is. Oh, it may be midnight and you can't see it. You still know the sun is, and all you've got to do is be patient for a few hours and the sun appears. You can say the rain is. You can say the crops is. You can say all is. Everything is, because the government is not on your shoulder. You can't make it so. You can't bring it about, and you can't prevent it. Not even atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs can prevent that which is ising. And that which is always will is. It will be here long after all the hydrogen bombs are gone. And so will we, if we relax the personal sense of responsibility and understand God is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. And leave that responsibility with the Father. Our part is to keep maintaining that in our consciousness. That's priming the pump. Until such time as it takes over, and then you never have to think consciously. You never take thought for your life. What you shall eat, what you shall drink, wherewithal you shall be clothed, because these truths keep flowing to you from within you. You don't have to think them. They come to you in infinite form and variety. Well, so it is with every one. You have the pamphlet supplied, and again you'll find it has a principle. And the principle is what? Well, now, we as humans have been taught to look on dollars as our supply, investments, securities, properties, crops. And because of that, we have gone through thousands of years of having and not having, and sometimes having more and sometimes having less, because our supply was an outer possession. In this booklet, we have a different principle. The principle is that my supply is the life force of my being. In other words, what the 23rd calls my shepherd. My shepherd is my supply. Now then, this that we call our inner being, our inner selfhood, God, the Christ, that is our supply. And the moment that you turn from believing that something in the external is your supply and realize that everything out here is a formation of supply, but that this inner Christ, Spirit, God, divine love, is the supply, and the money and the crops and the houses and the securities are the forms in which that supply appears, never again will you know lack or limitation. Never, never keep that in your consciousness, that supply isn't anything that I can see. Supply is that which I am in here, that which is the essence. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord, then, is my supply. And then the Lord leadeth me, of course, to the still waters or to the green pastures, and to the setting of a table in the wilderness, and the manna falling from the sky. But how could any of those things happen if there wasn't within this consciousness of the presence? So now we have another principle, and that's the principle of supply. Supply is not a visible effect. Supply is not a visible form. Supply is the infinite invisible. Once that becomes rooted and grounded in our awareness, it would make no difference if we started out every single day without a penny. The day would fulfill itself with everything necessary to our experience, and very soon we'd find there were 12 baskets full left over. Because the supply isn't the external, the supply is the internal. Well, in the same way we come to, I am the vine. And here we find another principle or law. And that principle is, this may sound as if I was selling books today. I'm not. I'm trying to expound the subject of principle. The principle of I am the vine is, of course, that I and my Father are inseparable. Outwardly, as Joel, I am the branch. This truth that I am reading, declaring, thinking, meditating upon is the vine, the Christ. And because it is an emanation of God, its soul and center is in God, we are one, the three of us right here. God the Father, Christ the Son, Joel the branch. But all right here. And not only right here, but right here, if I make my bed in hell, God the Father and Christ the vine and Joel the Son, the branch, would all be together. No matter where I find myself, I am three. I am Joel the branch, I am Christ the vine, and I am God the source, if so be I am dwelling in this truth and letting this truth abide in me. Otherwise, I'm a mortal, and my days are as grass, and I'll be withered and cut down and heard of no more. Only as I abide in the Word and let the Word abide in me is the three right here. So that's, again, a principle. If I were to take only that one principle and live with that, branch, Christ within, this truth that I am pondering is the Christ, the emanation or offspring of God, and it is rooted and grounded in God, and we three are all here in one, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. That alone is a principle that will change our entire lives. This Love and Gratitude is, of course, the book that I always hoped would be priced $50 instead of 50 cents, so that everybody would say, I wonder why. I must read that 1,000 times and find out why. Because of all the principles in the infinite way, that is the deepest. Why? Because all of our human experience is involved with the word love and the word gratitude. And we are always so loving and so grateful, and all the rest of the world isn't. And so we're always coming up against the problem of love and gratitude. And believe me, there are serious problems in the human world, and they always will be, until each one of us begins to see that love and gratitude are in and of God. And God alone is love. And God alone is the source of all gratitude. And as we look only to God instead of to each other, we will find ourselves one with each other. It doesn't lie within our power to be loving or to be grateful separate and apart from God. It just doesn't lie within the realm of humanhood to be loving or grateful except through our contact with God. God is love, and in our contact with God, it is the love of God and the gratitude of God that flows through us, not of ourselves. When we begin to see that, all of our human relationships become wonderful, because no longer do we look to each other for anything. We look only to God for love, for gratitude. We expect it only of God, and therefore we have nobody to find fault with anymore. That's a wonderful day when you don't find fault with people. And so it is in this leave your nets again. Leave your nets is nothing more nor less than the principle of leaving your faith and dependency in external means or persons, and realizing that it is the Christ that is the substance of all forms, Christ the substance of all activity, Christ the substance of all supply. In other words, the inner spiritual selfhood is our dependency. Then we do not look to the external. We enjoy the external. We work, we earn, we share. But our whole dependence is on the inner invisible. So it goes. Now, the same thing holds true in all of the other writings. In metaphysical notes, you have the principle of my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. And that, of course, was one of the first principles that ever made themselves clear to me and that became the foundation of my early experience. Then, of course, came consciousness unfolding, revealing that our experience isn't our experience. It's really God's experience made manifest as ours, expressed as ours, and that everything concerning us is really God in action. Well, so you go from one to another, and you find these various principles. Now, reading them only has importance in proportion as we live them. In other words, to take any one of these principles, even to leave all the others alone, just to live one of them, morning, noon, and night for an entire month or 2 or 3, until the one became grounded in us, just the one of the 23rd Psalm, that would begin to transform our lives. Taking one at a time and living them for a few months, making them our own, keeping them consciously within us, which is the obedience to the 15th chapter of John. Live in this truth. Let this truth live in us. Let us consciously realize, He maketh me lie down in green pastures. I don't have to go out looking for them. I don't have to search for God. God is searching for me. If only I'll stand still long enough to let Him catch up. And with that as a principle, you will see that life begins to transform. But just expecting that going to church or reading metaphysical books or going to metaphysical lectures or classes in and of itself will do anything for us is the mistake that's been made through the generations of going to church Sunday and listening to a minister preach a sermon and then going home and thinking that we've been washed clean for the week. The minister may have been washed clean, but not we. We are only washed clean as we take the principles into ourselves, live with them, live by them, make them principles of our existence. Well, you see, the same thing is true as we come to the healing work. Healing work is not as mysterious as it would seem. It is based on a principle. It's based on a lot of principles. The major principle, of course, is that God is individual life. There is only one life, that's God. So that life must be immortal and eternal, and it isn't going to become so through being healed of something. It is so. It doesn't have to be healed of a thing. All we have to be healed of is the belief that we have a life of our own that can be ill or that can have age to it. Now, as we begin to realize the one life, that is the principle, the basic principle of healing. Next comes in importance the principle of the word one, O-N-E. If there is only one law, then there are no laws to fear, whether they're laws of heredity, medical laws, physical laws, material laws. There is only one law if God is the lawgiver, and that law is spirit. Now, as we live with that truth, with that principle, hold to it. God is spirit. Therefore, the only law is spiritual law. We will not fear these mortal laws, these material laws, and ultimately we will see that they are only laws insofar as we accept them. Same thing. One is the principle. Well then, God is life, there is only one life. Or God is mind, so there can only be one mind. There's only one will. There's no will apart from it. God is one. How about selfhood? There's only one selfhood, and that selfhood is God. Oh, of course, we have a room full of selfhoods here in appearance, but actually there is only one selfhood, and each one of us has all of the qualities of that selfhood. Now, for one to sit here knowing that truth brings out healing in the many. One with God, one with truth, is a majority. So one person holding steadfastly to this truth, that God's selfhood is the only selfhood in this room, is the reason why we have healings here. It is why every once in a while someone comes and says, I've been healed of this, or this dropped away, or that dropped away. One with God is a majority, and as long as there is one here, or one on any platform, there will be healing because of oneness. Oneness. Well, back to the Easter eggs. Thank you.